IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest. In this class, we are looking at IELTS Task 2, writing. Of course, this is for the academic, but it's very similar for the general version of the test as well. So it doesn't matter if you're a general or academic student. This is valuable for you. This is a members chat class. We will follow this class with an all chat class for everybody where you can join the chat session. That's in 90 minutes. That will be reading. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch this lesson. Hello, members. Hi, Michael. Hi, Kyber. Hi, Nina. Hi, Niha. And Awaz. Nice to see members joining in on time. While we wait for some more of your peers, this lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, please check us out there and join our premium package. For general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com and join our premium package there. On both of those sites, we have loads and loads of materials for you. This is our academic IELTS website here with practice exams, interactive courses, as well as speaking, writing opportunities, and much more. Just click that big red button to join the premium package. For the general version, those of you who are taking the exam for immigration and visas, it's the green background here. Click that big red button to join us there. All right, everyone. If you haven't, you can also download our apps, link them to your web account. So for aehelp.com students, link the app, Academic IELTS Help. For general IELTS students at gieltshelp.com, download and link the app, General IELTS Help. I'm doing great, Abhishek. Thank you for asking. I hope everybody else is healthy and doing well also. Anybody who has questions, let me know. Send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. We are British Council registration partners, so we have access to answer questions even that we might not know the answer to, but we can ask British Council for the answers. If you want our exam books, you can get them from Amazon. Look for AEhelp's Academic IELTS and GHelp's General IELTS. Kartik, welcome to our group of members. Nice to see you become a member. That's great. I know you were planning to do that, so fantastic. Send me an email and I'll hook you up with those exclusive videos. So today, again, task 2 and reading, and then we'll likely finish task 2 tomorrow, and then we'll do a task 1 with everybody as well tomorrow. And this week, members, we'll do a Q&A session on Saturday followed by a speaking part 3. Hi, Musafir. Hi, Batsal. Lots of members in the class. It's nice to see. Fantastic. So today we are focusing on understanding the question, planning the question, and starting with a good introduction. Again, I still find that one of the biggest mistakes made by most IELTS students is they're unfamiliar with how to write an essay, how to structure an essay, how to clearly understand the question of an essay. So it's always good to spend time on essay planning, structuring, writing a good introduction. So starting strong, okay? Now, this was a question that was sent by one of our members. So I'm happy that several members are now sending requests for task 1, task 2. So I do schedule them as I receive them, and I try to balance them according to who is sending how many requests. So this was sent by one of our members. I'm not sure who sent this one, actually. I think it was a while ago that this was sent. So whoever it was, if you can tell me, if you're still in the class, let me know, okay? I'm curious who sent this one, but it was in my list of requests. So here's the question. Let's read it carefully first. Okay, that's always your first step when you get to, of course, these questions in the writing section, is really, really carefully read the question. Okay, it's one of the biggest mistakes. Students quickly read the question, start writing, and then realize that it's off topic, they're giving too general information or writing about something different. So that's really, really bad, okay? You'll lose band scores, a lot of band scores, if you're off topic, okay? So you have to be on topic. Hi, Janeel. You also joined the class. All right, great. Okay, so let's read this. Read it with me. Task 2, writing. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Spoken communication is always more powerful than written communication. To what extent do you agree? Give explanations and examples to support your opinion. So it's a fairly short question. It's an interesting question as well. All right, so we've read the question. Now, what is your first step after reading the question? So we've read the question. What's your first step? What should you do always? Okay, so step number 1. We're going to go really nice and smooth step by step today. I've shown you different strategies over the last few weeks for this, but I do want to always get back to the original strategy, right? Okay, so paraphrasing it, right? So step 1 is paraphrase the question. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to use the paraphrase necessarily in your essay. So this is not necessarily a part of your essay, okay? It might be in the background, but it's not necessarily a part of your essay. So why do you do it? Why should you paraphrase the question? What is the purpose of that? What's the logic behind that? Why would you want to do that? Okay. So Kyber says to get some vocabulary. Rajveer says to make sure that you understand the question. Lipuj, yeah, it's all about that, right? It's really important. Even for a native speaker, they can sometimes read the question, think they understand it, and then realize after paraphrasing that they didn't quite understand it. So it's like a double check, okay? This is a very important double check to make sure that you really do understand the question correctly. Yeah, the human mind is kind of funny. We sometimes hear or read information and we think we got it. We're convinced. We're like, oh yeah, got it. And then you read it again or you paraphrase it and you're like, whoa, did I ever miss the boat on that one? So by paraphrasing it, it's this really important double check to make sure that you understand the question, okay? So I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that in your IELTS exam, because it's a terrible feeling when a student with good English gets a band 6.57 in listening, they get a 6.57 in speaking, in reading they get a 6.5, and then their writing score is a 5 or a 5.5. And they're like, what happened? And then they probably don't know, but most likely they misinterpreted the question. So they didn't actually write an accurate essay. And so their overall band score is a 6. And it's a horrible feeling, okay, because they need a 6.5. So, and that can happen to students because of this missed question, okay? All right, so let's do that. Spoken communication is always more powerful than written communication. To what extent do you agree? Give explanations and examples. Give me a paraphrase, students. So write that in your own words. Let's see what you come up with. I'm going to do the same. Okay. So All right. So, good paraphrasing. You should have about 80% replacement minimum. Okay. So I'm going to add this to the step number 1 here. All right. Good paraphrasing means that you have at least 70% replacement of the original question. If you're having trouble with that, use a thesaurus, okay? Use a thesaurus to help if needed, all right? Okay, so I see that a lot of you have also paraphrased, which is fantastic. I'm going to take a look at that now. All right. Maja Besednyak says, verbal communicating has a stronger effect on the audience or listener, sure, compared to texting. Okay. Kyber says, the verbal form of communication on all occasions is supposed to be stronger than the written one. To what extent do you believe or disbelieve this statement? Okay, that works as well. So far, those are good paraphrases. Rajveer says, verbal communication is always more effective than written communication. To what degree do you... that last part, Rajveer, it's a little bit off grammatically. I'll correct it. So, to what degree are you in agreement with this? To what degree are you? It's a be verb there, Rajveer. Bekjan says, verbal connection is always greater than texting relations. Do you support or are you against this view? Yeah, that works. Elena says, verbal communication is more useful than memorandum. Do you agree or disagree with that notion? Okay, yeah, I think that will work as well. Rajveer continues with provide explanations and examples, of course, reminding yourself that those are key elements of your essay, right? Okay, Abhishek says verbal statements are constantly carry more weight. Nice attempt, Abhishek. It's tricky English, but it's used. So one more time, Abhishek. Verbal statements are constantly carrying more weight than printed communication. To what extent do you approve? Abhishek has a really nice paraphrase here, students, so pay attention to it. Verbal statements are constantly carrying more weight than printed communication. That's some nice paraphrasing, Abhishek. Both the verbal statements and printed communication is great. Okay, printed communication is a little bit better paraphrasing than saying texting. Okay, texting is more of a modern verb that comes from texting through your mobile phone, but writing is traditionally paraphrased as literature or printed communication. Okay, so texting is quite modern and it really is more specific to just phone texting. Okay, but of course, literary communication is much more than just texting on your phone. Pavan says, verbal communication is more effective than texting or sending a letter. Hassan says, good, Pavan, that's half of the paraphrase, Pavan, you need the other half. Hassan says, some people argue that verbal forms of communication are far more powerful than written communication. Okay, Hassan, again, that's a good start. Paraphrase the whole question, especially when it's short, like this one, okay? Boomi, verbal reports often have more weight than printed communication. Conversation, Boomi, is usually used for verbal exchange. So conversations, we don't use that word so much when it's in the written form. Conversation's much more specific to verbal exchange, okay? Do you believe this? Give explanations and examples. Okay, good. Vatsal says face-to-face conversations matter a lot more than written conversations. Vatsal, the words a lot, 2 words, a lot, okay, 2 words. It's a rookie mistake, so you have to make sure you fix that, okay? Niha, oral communication. Very nice, Niha. Oral. That's another way we paraphrase verbal or spoken is oral. So verbal, spoken, oral. Lots of vocabulary there to show your lexical resource. Okay, good. So Niha says oral communication is usually more robust than written. Do you agree or disagree? Robust, Niha, does not mean exactly more powerful or more effective. Robust means more comprehensive, so it's more complete. Okay, so robust is not an accurate paraphrase, in my opinion, for the word powerful in this case. Okay, so careful, good try, but be careful with that. Rahul says verbal communication skills seem to be more effective than writing skills. Okay, Rahul, good. All right, and Jainil says talking is often stronger than writing. What do you believe in regards to this statement? Jainil, a couple of corrections there. Talking transmission, it's awkward. We wouldn't use the word transmission with talking. Talking interaction, Jainil. Talking interaction maybe, okay? But just keep it simple, Jainil. Don't overcomplicate it. So talking is often stronger than writing. It's simple, yet elegant and beautiful, okay? Correspondence, Kyber, is a good synonym for communication. So Kyber is asking, can I write correspondence instead of communication? Absolutely. Co-respond, so co meaning together, and respond meaning back and forth. So correspondence is a very nice synonym for communication. Absolutely, Kyber. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, here is my paraphrase. And I went through all of your paraphrases, students, because that's the first and very important step to it, and I wanted to make sure all of you are understanding the question accurately. So good job with that. I think most of you were on mark. Here's my paraphrase. Verbal interaction with others always has a greater impact than literary methods of influence, right? Why? Because when we're talking and when we're writing for each other, we're influencing each other, okay? What is the degree that you concur with this notion? So with this idea, concur is just a synonym for agree, okay? And then, of course, give reasoning and instances to back up your idea. So I'm just using a lot of synonyms here for the original and paraphrasing, making sure that I understand the question accurately. All right, so what is the topic here? So step number 2, of course, is clearly identify the topic and controlling idea. Okay, so what are we actually talking about here? And the nice thing about these kind of shorter questions is it's usually a bit easier to figure out what the topic is. Okay, so the topic here is communication or communication power. Sure. Okay, so was nice. Communication power, just communication is enough, I think, in this instance. Okay. So communication, good. And the controlling ideas? It's a really nice question. I like this one. It deals with my area of expertise. So thank you, whoever sent me this one. It's a nice question to look at this type of task 2 where it's to what extent do you agree? Okay, so what's the controlling idea or the controlling ideas here? Okay. And again, try to keep it simple, right? What's the controlling idea? So Bhumi says, which has more impact? Kyber says, written communication versus spoken communication. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, to keep it really simple, you can just say spoken versus written form. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I mean, you can say which is more powerful, but I think that's understood from this. Okay, so definitely keep that in mind. All right, so let's go through. So what's my next step? Okay, I don't want to spoil it for you. What's my next step here? Step number 3 in your planning. And again, with practice, especially for a question like this is happening quickly. Okay, so Abhishek says critical thinking. Sure, Abhishek, you're right. Absolutely. What is that critical thinking? So what are the actual steps of critical thinking? We don't get to our thesis statement yet because we don't know what our thesis statement is yet. Okay, so before thinking critically, you don't really know what your thesis statement should be. Okay, and Begjan says, first of all, think and ask what, why, and how, right? So that's your critical thinking, yeah. So critical thinking, and I'm sure it's getting a bit repetitive for some of our older members, but believe it or not, it's such a useful approach to logic and writing, and it will really help you not just in the IELTS but in university as well. So that means what plus why plus how, right? That's what we're doing here. Okay, so here then, without me spoiling it, what's the first what question? Okay, let's keep this simple, and this information will become the elements of your essay, right? So that's another reason why you want to keep this in mind, is these answers will become the content of your essay, all right? So don't think, oh, I'm just wasting time and I don't need to, I'm not writing anything useful here. Well, it's the content of your essay really is what it is. So yeah, so the first question is about the topic, and it's what is communication? Very good. Okay. All right, and as simple as that might seem, we might have different answers for this, but we do definitely need to have a unified understanding so that our reader knows what we're talking about, right? So that is the right question, okay? It's simple, elegant, beautiful. What is communication? So what is communication? Pavan says it's an act where two or more people share information. I think you have half of it, Pavan. Okay. Bagchan says it's an interaction between people. Okay, I think there's half of it there as well, or I think it's partial. Okay, there's a good one. Kyber says communication is the ability of receiving and giving information in various ways among people. That would probably be the dictionary definition, Kyber. Yeah. So co in English, the prefix, right, meaning together, and Munich here meaning in a group, right? So together in a group and something happening. And what's happening is we're both giving and receiving information, right? So communication is two parts. It's receiving and giving. If we're just giving information, it's really only a lecture and it's one-sided, okay? So that's why I love these live classes with you, because I get to have back and forth interaction with you, and it's much more communication than videos where I create an HD video and I just give you the information and that's all there is to it, right? So that's why I find these classes really fun and enjoyable with you. So communication is the act of giving and receiving information, or you could say knowledge as well, in various ways, of course, among people. All right, so that's your most accurate definition. Where is this information important? So where does this definition, and this is why you want to be accurate here, okay, you want your definition to be as accurate as possible, because this is used as what? What do you use this definition as? Yeah, exactly. In the intro background. Very good, Rajveer Bhumi Khyber. Yeah, because it is used as the background information in your introductory paragraph. So the more accurate it is, the more sense your essay is going to make because you're laying the foundation with your definition, right? And of course, as all of you know, the stronger your foundations, the stronger your communication, the stronger your essay, right? Okay, so that's where you're going to use this. Okay, what's my next question? So far, so good. What do I ask next? And again, this becomes very important for a good answer. Not what is strong communication, Khyber. That would not be my question. Okay. Be accurate. Don't overcomplicate. Keep it simple. Simple is beautiful. It's not easy. Okay. It's not how. Yeah, Rajveer. Exactly. Neha. Why? Why do we communicate? Okay. Why do we communicate with others? Sometimes even with ourselves, right? Why do we do that? So Oz says people communicate to share information, ask questions, express wants and needs, develop social relationships. Sure. Okay. Can anybody simplify that for me? So Awaz, I think you have a lot of good answers there. Is there a simpler way to summarize all of what Awaz has just said? To give information and to receive. Giving good answers to the why is really important, and I'll tell you in a moment exactly the reason for that. Elena says to express ourselves. Yes, in some sense. I don't think it's quite there yet. We interact with others to share information and socialize. Keep it simple, students. Why am I communicating with you? What is my ultimate goal? So why am I talking to all of you through my camera from the heart of Budapest to all you beautiful people and around the world in India and Uzbekistan and Brazil and many other places? Why am I talking to you? What's my purpose here? Abhishek says to exchange ideas and thoughts. Sure, that's part of it, to express thoughts. Hassan says to exchange ideas. Okay, Elena says to teach us. So Elena, why am I teaching you? What's my logic? Again, visualize here, everyone. I'm sharing knowledge, but what's my purpose of sharing knowledge? Pavan says to share and receive information. Sure. Mohit says, again, students, spend the quality time on these why questions because they will really have a huge effect on the quality of your writing. Okay, so to transfer knowledge, but why am I transferring knowledge, Hina? Okay, why am I educating you, Kartik? So Dr. Krishna says, acknowledgement and source of income, that's my personal goal, yeah. Okay. I would say that if we keep going down this little rabbit hole, then the reason why is because I want to affect change. Okay. So we communicate with each other because ultimately we want to affect change in ourselves and in others. So if we take what Dr. Krishna says, because I want to be acknowledged for my own theories, my own knowledge, and also make money, at the end of the day, I'm affecting change in myself, in my own economic status, in my own social status, in my own self-confidence. By giving you information, of course, I hope that you take that information, you use it, you pass the IELTS exam, you go on to study in university, live happy and successful lives, and become positive global world citizens who contribute to the better life of humanity and the planet. So my hope is that I'm creating effective change in the world through my communication. Does that make sense? So ultimately, it's to effect change is why we communicate. Okay, that's one of the most beautiful parts of our human existence, is that we can affect change through our communication. And we can see that when parents interact with children, teachers interact with students, colleagues interact with each other, right? As we affect change, okay? Purposeful and directed change, okay? All right, so what's my next question? Good, everybody's got it, fantastic. So what's my next question? Where do I go from here? What do I ask? Okay, let's keep moving here. Definitely aim to finish our introduction today. Very good, Boomy. So how do we communicate, right? So that's the big question here. How do we communicate? Okay, and of course here we have our answers already given to us. So through verbal and written form. Any other ways? So we get into nexus with another person, we start talking to them, or we hand them a letter, send them a text. Any other way that we communicate? There are other ways of communication. There's oral, there's written. What else? Sign language, Rahul Preet, absolutely, or simply put, body language, right? So you, me, communicate, dance, right? So gesturing, yeah, gesturing, body language, sure. Verbal and written form, body language. What else? Pavan says virtual, but virtual is more of the medium than the actual method. So virtual is a medium of communication, not a method of communication. There is another one that I can think of. Oh, there's Bekjan. Bekjan says by picture, by drawing, yeah, by art, through art, yeah. Through art. Okay, so pictures. And if you think of pictures and you start thinking of art, you will probably think of some others. Abhishek says through touch. Yeah, absolutely. Touch is a very powerful form or method of communication as well. And Boomy, very nice, through music as well. Through music as well. Eye contact, Abhishek, I would say, is kind of a part of body language for me. So the way that we use our eyes, but it's a very powerful and specific form of body language, okay? Definitely music as well, right? So music is sound, similar to verbal, but it's unique for sure, okay? Elena, dance for sure. Dance, I think we could group dance into body language and touch. So, but if I had to separate them, Marina says maybe through the mind. We don't know that yet. There's definitely experiments that go into that, but mental, okay, it's possible that we can transmit thoughts, okay? We don't know that. Anyway, fortunately, we're not writing a 2,000-page book, so we don't have to discuss all of these. Here, we're just asked to compare the verbal and written form of communication. So let's quickly do a little bit of critical thinking here. I think it's important. So what is verbal communication? So what would you consider to be verbal communication? I'm going to move us along here a little bit. We're going to simultaneously do this, students. So I'll look at what you're saying, and you'll compare it to what I'm writing. Now, hopefully we'll match up, okay? So it's the use of words and sounds, intonation, and enunciation, usually in real time. Transmitted to the audience okay, I'm just gonna keep it at that. So what is verbal communication? It's the use of words and sounds, intonation, and enunciation, usually in real time, transmitted to the audience. Okay. All right. Let's see what you've come up with. Kyber says verbal communication is a way of giving and receiving information through a person's voice, auditory, sound. Yeah, absolutely. Nashat says use of sounds and words to express yourself or express oneself, Nashat, oneself, to avoid the word you in this essay. We don't want to use the word you, Nashat, so oneself. Okay. Rajveer says interactions between two people where they speak with each other to give and receive information. Good. Okay. It's not necessarily between two people, Rajveer. It could be between a much larger audience as well. Okay. All right. If you have something similar to that, that's great. Okay. So why do we choose to express ourselves verbally? Okay, give me an answer to this one. I'll try to catch some different students' answers. So why do we choose to express ourselves verbally? So what are those contexts where we want to use our own voice instead of using writing, for example, right? So Bhumi says it's instant. So it can be very quick. It allows for back and forth dialogue in real time. Okay. It enables the speaker to express their emotions more accurately through their own voice. Okay. Abhishek says to give more accurate information and understanding. Dr. Krishna says exact expression and impression can be delivered. Rajveer says to enable facial and body language. Careful, Rajveer, it's not necessarily true. I could give you spoken communication through the radio, for example, whereby you don't actually see me, but you hear me. So careful here, students, not to accidentally mix body language or some other form of communication in with spoken communication. Spoken communication does not necessarily combine visual communication. Okay? So Marina says to show and share our feelings. Again, you have to be careful there, Marina, because written language can do that as well, right? So we can express our emotions through writing, but perhaps it's more accurate through speaking in real time, right? So definitely it can be very quick, okay? It's instantaneous. I think one of the main benefits of spoken communication is that it does allow for back and forth dialogue in real time. Okay, so it allows us to not only send but also receive the possible information from our audience reflecting what they feel. Okay, especially if we're communicating and not just lecturing. All right. Okay, so how? By verbalizing ourselves to one or more listeners, thinking of ideas and interpreting those ideas in real time into sounds. Okay, so something like that. All right, for how. Okay, so what is written communication? Okay, so these would definitely be the thoughts going through my head as I'm preparing my task 2 response. And of course, in the real exam, I wouldn't have enough time to necessarily write down all of these questions and answers, but I would go through these steps in my mind nice and quick before I put my pen or pencil to paper and start writing my my introductory paragraph in my essay. So what is written communication? So it's using written letters and symbols to compose ideas on paper or in a document, whereby adhering to grammatical and syntactic rules. Okay, so what is written communication? It's using written letters and symbols to compose ideas on paper or in a document. Of course, paper these days, often it's digital, whereby we adhere. Adhere means to follow, okay? Follow grammatical and syntactic rules. So the rules of writing, right? If we don't follow those, it's just going to be gibberish and it won't make sense to our readers. That's why those are marked on the IELTS exam as well. This one I want you to give me an answer. So why do we use written communication? So this is a key question here that you really need to focus on in order to answer this essay question well and increase your chances of getting the best band score. So why do we use written communication? What's the reason for that? Can anybody tell me? Okay. And I'll let you know. Okay. It is more permanent. Okay, so it stays around. It's not like our voice. I mean, these days our voice, yeah, we can record it and so on, but when we write it down, especially historically, it's more permanent. So it's, Kyber, it's suitable for long term. Okay, Dr. Krishna, for storage, documentation. Absolutely. So it's more permanent. Here's an important one. Okay, it's more thought out. It's more meticulous. So speaking and writing in this way are very different, right? When we write, we're usually much more accurate with our thoughts because we can go back and revise, right? Exactly, Kyber. We have time to think and express ourselves exactly the way that we want. We can rethink our ideas. Okay, Michael says we can share our thoughts in a more formal and thorough way, more thought out. Exactly. Okay, so how is this done? And this is what you should practice at home. Okay, so here it's kind of, we're hitting two birds with one stone here, whereby we're answering this task 2 essay question, but I'm also giving you some advice and strategy about how to communicate with words on paper or in a document. So how is this done? By thinking and writing down our thoughts, then reading what we have written, revising, and rewriting. Okay, so ideally, that's what you're doing, okay? And this can be through emails, Kyber. So Kyber said through emails, texts, books, essays, articles, journals, just to name a few, right? There are lots of different specific formats of the written language. Here are some of them, but the actual methodology behind it, behind most of these hopefully, is we think, we write it down, we read it, we revise it, we make the necessary changes, and then in the end we have a message that we send to the audience that we intend. Okay? Yeah, exactly, Jainil. Mail, letters, chat, and so on. All right. So now that we have all of this, now we can come up with our thesis. So thinking about these concepts, okay, and again, when you come up with your thesis, also think about examples of spoken and examples of written communication that have had an impact on humanity in history. Okay, so Bhumi, before the hook, let's figure out our direction here and let's come up with our thesis. And for our thesis, let's just revisit the question. So spoken communication is always more powerful than written communication. To what extent do you agree? Now, here's a nice hint, students. When you see a superlative is like always or never. It's like the absolute. It's usually never true or almost never true. Okay? So that's just a tip. All right? That will help you to answer these types of questions. Okay? If you see a superlative like always, best, never, it's usually not true. You just need to figure out why. Okay? So anytime. So careful with superlatives. We use those in our everyday colloquial world, but in the academic world and in the world of logic, superlatives are quite often untrue. Okay? Quite often untrue. You're very welcome, Elena. Yeah, it's a good one to keep in mind. So it's kind of like it's a hidden piece of help in these kinds of questions. Okay? So let's come up with that thesis. Okay. I'm going to do the same, and then we'll compare. Okay, so all right. So that's my thesis there. Okay. Let's see what you've come up with. Okay, and this is the pivotal point of your essay. So this needs to be good. All right. Okay, Sammy says, I believe verbal communication is better and more understandable than printed communication. Why, Sammy? Your thesis, Sammy, definitely has to give reasoning for your reader. Any valuable thesis, Sammy, will give an idea of the why question to your reader. Okay, why do you think this? Most readers in the professional and academic world will not continue to read an article or an essay after the introduction if they haven't got an idea of why this information is being presented to them or this opinion is being presented to them. Keep that in mind, okay? Pavan says, spoken communication involves sharing information in real time and can express persons' emotions. So Pavan, for those reasons, do you think it's always more powerful than written communication? If yes, you need to tell me that, and you can potentially argue it. It's a tough argument, but you can potentially argue that, okay? But you still need to tell me that you think it's more powerful, okay? So you have to answer this question of to what extent do you agree? Okay, Bekjan says, although many people think that printed communication is more powerful, I believe that verbal connections have a greater influence since it's fast and emotional. Okay, that's a bit better. So Bekjan, you're very similar to Pavan in that you express the same kind of concept, but you make the comparison. So it makes for a better thesis. So Pavan, you want your thesis to read more like Bekjan's thesis. Okay. All right. Hassan says, although oral type of communication can convey emotions and gestures, I believe that excellent writers can conquer the world with their literature. And as the saying goes, the pen is mightier than the sword. Yeah, Hassan, it's good. I don't know if I would throw in that idiom. That idiom's a little bit off mark. It does express that written word as very powerful, but it's comparing it to physical aggression rather than speaking. So it's an off comparison of the power of writing. You see what I'm saying there, Hassan? So I'd avoid that. Be really careful with idioms, students, because it's really hard to use idioms precisely, especially in a persuasive essay. So careful, okay? If I were reading and marking that, Hassan, I'd be like that, if you get my feeling, okay? All right. Kyber says, I completely agree that verbal form of communication is stronger and faster mode of correspondence. Students, I think a lot of you are missing a key element here. Okay, and this think about also your speaking exam when you get a question of how often. Okay, like how often do you play sports? This question, the word always, is a key element of this question. Okay, you really have to pay attention to that word, and I don't think many of your thesis statements are not reflecting attention to this word, to this superlative. Okay, the question isn't, is spoken communication more powerful than written communication? The question is it always more powerful than spoken communication? So that word changes the way that you approach this answer, okay? And I'm a little bit concerned that a lot of you, especially after I explain the importance of this word, are writing thesis statements which kind of miss this essay. So it's like this essay is kind of moving here and you're moving above it or just below it, but you're not on it, okay? That's going to cost you at least a band score if you were to get this essay, okay? So please rethink your thesis statements, okay? All right. So Bhumi says, although oral interaction is most impactful, I disagree with this statement since printed communication is meticulous and permanent. Yeah, so it's not always, right? You have to have the always in there, Bhumi, but I think you have the right idea there, okay? Because of that, it's not always more powerful. Awaz says, although written type of communication is a more formal way to share thoughts, I believe that people who can use oral communication have more impact. Again, Awaz, it's the same mistake. It's missing the point. And here, students, I mean, you can say that oral communication is always more powerful than written. So my problem isn't which side you're choosing. The problem is that you're missing the adverb of frequency. Because in this question, it's asking you, to what extent do you agree with this adverb of frequency within this context, right? Is that clear? Are you picking up what I'm saying there, students? So are you understanding why you're off mark? Okay. All right, so I'm running a little bit short on time, and I'm going to leave the introduction for you. I think we have most of the elements that we need for this introduction in the planning anyway, and I'll have my introduction ready for you for tomorrow's class, and then we'll continue with the body paragraphs. This is my thesis statement for this. Although verbal communication can be very impactful, let's put that comma in there, I strongly disagree that it is always more powerful than written word because literature is detailed and persistent. Okay? So here, I'm going to make my argument in my body paragraphs that in certain contexts, the written word is stronger than verbal communication, and therefore I disagree with the statement that verbal communication is always more powerful. Does that thesis make sense to this question? So one more time, just nice and quick here, I really want you to have clarity. So to make sure that you don't make this mistake, students, think about that dialogue that I've said to you. So the dialogue between you, the writer, and you, the reader. So you, the writer, you, the reader. Okay? So the reader asks you the question. The reader says, hey, spoken communication is always more powerful than written communication. In fact, they'll emphasize this word. Okay, so they'll stress this word. Hey, spoken communication is always more powerful than written communication. What extent do you agree with this? Well, I don't completely agree with that, because even though you're right, verbal communication is really effective, I think that with writing, in some cases, communication can be more powerful, especially if we're trying to communicate with people 200-300 years in the future. When we write a really powerful book with a clear message, I think that will carry more weight half a millennia later than if we say something on a recording. Oh, so you don't always agree with this? Yeah, no, I don't. Okay, so you see how that dialogue clarifies the accuracy of that communication? Okay, so have that dialogue with yourself, with the original question. Okay. All right. Students, on that note, I will leave you. Please have your introductory paragraph ready for tomorrow's class. We'll go from there. Please review and fix your thesis statements. Okay. And for everybody who's watching, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general. And coming up in 30 minutes, I will host a class for the reading section where we'll do a little bit of strategy and practice from our materials. Thanks, everyone. Wonderful participation. Members, hopefully I'll see you shortly in half an hour. Bye for now.